Welcome to the Joe Monroe Show. Now, here's your host, Joe Monroe.
Hello, pro wrestling fans, family, and friends. Welcome to another episode of the History of Professional Wrestling. With me, your host, Joe Monroe. And today we got a classic coming up. We are going to talk about none other than the legend himself, Terry Funk. That's right. We're going to talk about Terry Funk. I know a lot of people love Terry Funk. I do too. I absolutely love Terry Funk for everything that he's done in the professional wrestling industry. But we'll get into that a little more later on. But for right now, I want to introduce some sponsors real quick. First and foremost, we want to thank our friends and sponsors, Phenomenal Funds ATL. If you're looking for anything retro, whether it be professional wrestling, anything from The Simpsons to Rugrats or anything like that, check out phenomenalfundsatl.com. They probably will have it, as well as our partners and sponsors, Triple Crown Wrestling and Ultimate Championship Wrestling, as they are bringing back the sport of professional wrestling as it should be to the great state of Kentucky, and as well as our partners and sponsors, Mayhem Media. Not only do we handle wrestling, which is what I do, we also handle all forms of media from television to movies, to other sports like baseball, basketball. So if you love anything or all of that, go check out Mayhem Media. And a big shout out to our friends Charms Photos. Crystal, who you all probably usually see on the lives, is the lovely lady who takes photos of the wrestlers during the events. Yeah, that's right. She's the one that makes our ugly mugs look a lot better. Well, okay, tries to make them a lot better. We can't help that we look that ugly, folks. I'm sorry. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Les Murphy Painting. If you're having any trouble with any painting needs, contact Les Murphy at 734-334-3702. And while you all are here, if you don't mind, go check out the No Sell Roundtable, where myself and other podcasters talk about various topics of professional wrestling, which is what I want to bring to this Sunday. We are actually going to talk about who killed WCW. That is the next episode for the No Sell Roundtable. So be sure to check that out. The event's already created on the Facebook page. So go ahead and get notified for that. Now, I know you all are big history buffs just like I am. So let's go on. Let's check out Terry Funk. I know a lot of people's excited for this. Let me go ahead and get this shared around real quick. I'm sorry. Kind of slacking today. There we go. All right. So let's see. Do we have a couple of comments already in here? Look at that. Connor Clarkson, the one and only Connor Clarkson's here. I'm doing great, bro. Good to see you. JD from Mayhem Media. Good to see you, JD. All right. Who's ready to talk about Terry Funk? You know, Terry Funk was a big inspiration in professional wrestling. And I just want to. Oh. No one on here is supposed to be on here but me. Oh, Joe.
What's going on?
What are you doing here?
Not much, man. Not much, spinning the globe and figuring where to find a wrestler to talk to and just, getting on my boat, getting on my plane, staring at my grandfather's pictures, singing the Cody Rhodes theme. Just heard you doing a show. Heard you needed a little Joe and Joe fun, talking about
Why not? You can join in today. Why not? I like you, Joe.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Dudes at Ringside Podcast and Ghost Heads and Nerd Talk, Joe Panther the Third. Joe,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Yes. You know me, I'm the That's four big ones, Ghostbusters.
I'm sorry that was really delayed, Dave.
Dave, I'll definitely have to leave a little Slimer ecto cooler on the side for that guy, so he gets a little pet. Maybe I'm sorry, it may be from 2016. Don't drink it immediately. Put a little vodka in that before he drinks it.
Do you have to bring up the bad Ghostbusters?
But it was ecto cooler. What you wanted to drink the one from the 1980s?
I mean, why not? Let's feel nostalgic. Anyways, let's go ahead.
Drinking those, Joe. Oh my God, they they was like liquid body. Like they body. It was. I don't want to talk about Terry Funk. One of my favorite topics. Old school, legendary, old school man.
Absolutely. Terry Funk is 100% as old school can get. This man is an absolute legend in the professional wrestling industry. There's no debating that. I mean, for crying out loud, from the Double Cross Ranch in Texas, when you heard that, you know exactly who was coming through that curtain. That was Terry Funk. A lot of people don't know this, but he started his career way back in 1965. What do you think about that, Joe?
Oh my God, Terry Funk! Like the man could do no wrong because his career is so legendary. Like matches he's done, like against um Foley, he's done like tons of awesome death matches in Japan. He did pretty much. If it wasn't for like Terry, ECW would not have that big, scary, barbed wired footprint they have still forever in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area in the world. So
Right.
they full oh my gosh, there's every deathmatch wrestler feels in their DNA a little bit of Terry Funk. So
No,
yeah,
I
gotta
agree
get
with you.
funky.
We'll get into that a little later on about Terry Funk and sorry about that. Don't know why it's not tagging my followers here. That is weird. What in the world?
I try to comment and it won't even let me comment.
That is weird.
Yeah, I don't have a box on my end either.
Huh.
Yeah, weird.
Okay. I probably made somebody mad. Anyways,
Yeah.
but 1965, you got to think. There we go. That's better. He's a multi-generational wrestler. His father was a wrestler. His brother was a wrestler. Um, he started in Western States Sports in 1965 and wrestled there until 1979, mainly tagging with his brother Dory Funk Jr. I mean, let's talk about that. Not only did we have Terry Funk, but we also had Dory Funk Jr., who in his own right is a legendary professional wrestler as well in this industry.
Yeah, wow. Like that's insane. It's like his family was like a walking yeah. His family is like a walking legacy of the world. Like
Mhm.
everybody in his family has touched the wrestling world every in a special way that everybody has to remember them somehow. You know what I mean, Joe?
Right. So the first 5 years he stayed there. Then in 1970, he would eventually move on down to Florida. Now, a lot of people know around this time in 1975, this is when he defeated Jack Briscoe for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. And I actually do believe we got a picture here, don't we, Dave? Do we have a picture right here? If we do. So, I mean, look at that. I mean, not many people. Okay, back then, like wrestling historians know that he won the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, but people nowadays, like younger generational fans, this is why I want to do this show. They probably don't know that Terry Funk was a holder of the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship,
Yeah.
and
It's
and and that's weird. I mean, he began a 14-month title reign against Jack, Dusty Rhodes, Giant Baba, Pat O'Connor. I mean, that name, those names by themselves that's a legendary run. And we're just getting early in his career, and he would eventually, on his first one, would be defeated by Harley Race, uh, which is someone that I will cover soon. I know, folks, I will cover him soon. Then in 1981, this is when he went into the Continental Wrestling Association and did his big feud with Jerry Lawler, which is why I kind of wanted to do Terry Funk, because here past few months we've been down in Memphis. We've been going back to Memphis. But he had that feud. I mean, the lights out. It's like the lights out. There was nobody in the empty arena match. If you haven't watched that match, I would urge you to go watch that, because that's next level stuff for back then. This is the early 80s, 1981, between 81 and 82. They had that match, and nobody really knew why they were having it or what to expect out of that match. I mean, it was groundbreaking, I think. And Terry Funk selling his eye, saying, my eye, Lawler, you son of a gun, my eye. And there was nobody in the arena, but Terry played it off to the camera. He knew what to do. He knew how to draw an audience. He was so soft spoken. I can't do a good Terry Funk, so I'm sorry ahead of time. But he was so soft spoken. He talked like this, but you could hang on to his every word. Him and I would say Jake the Snake Roberts is the only two people that's kind of soft spoken, but it's how they look directly in the camera as they were speaking that hooked you whenever they were doing a promo.
Yeah, as a kid, I was kind of nervous every time Jake Roberts was talking and you looked mad. It's like when you get in trouble when you're a kid, and it's like either you're gonna get uh, Jake Roberts speaker at you, or you're gonna get some Undertaker. My dad was CO, so all I thought is Uncle Phil. Every time my dad was mad at me, I'm watching Fresh Prince again, so I'm thinking more or less, you're grounded. Okay, yeah, I know. I'm gonna go in the room. I won't come up for
But
you.
not only that, during the early '70s, he would go to All Japan Pro Wrestling, which is where he started making a big name for himself over in Japan. Which you and I both know, if a wrestler back then goes to Japan and gets over, then they're a megastar in their own right already. This was before cable television and networking and all that. This was it right here. This was the mecca. Japan was not only the land of the rising sun, but the land of the rising legendary wrestlers, as I should say. uh, Especially during that time. I mean, it kind of is still today, but I don't think that, well, I'll probably get some flack for this, but I don't think it has as much meaning as it did back then, if that makes sense. I know I'm probably sounding mean, not saying that people shouldn't go to Japan. By all means, if you can go to Japan, do it. But I don't think it has the same meaning anymore than what it did back then. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I don't think it does now. It nowadays, depending on the circles you go to in
Mhm.
Japan with wrestling, it probably still has the same like if it's the female wrestlers like Stardom, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's still it's that kind of side, and is maybe like some like the and am I wrong? The NJPW side maybe Stardom, NJPW,
New
W,
Japan.
yeah, NJPW, but like there's other parts you just like nah. I'll stick to being a small indie wrestler in a little podunk town.
So,
Like,
uh, uh, but he stayed, and eventually 1985 through '86, he would move on to the World Wrestling Federation, which is when we got this little guy right here, the Terry Funk LJN. I know I don't have the whip or the hat. I wish I did, but I do have a Terry Funk LJN. Uh, but he had some feuds there with excuse me, all the Branding Iron too. He would have feuds with Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana, and he had matches against Hulk Hogan, for crying out loud. Mind you, this is going on 20 years into his career, and we're you know, flash forwarding to mid '80s, and New York, as what they used to call it back then, was the place to be. So anywhere where a wrestler can make their name and where they're supposed to be at the time, you will start seeing a trend of Terry Funk being in that place. And I think he hit him at the right times too. Just like when NWA formed into WCW in the late 80s, early 90s. Who was there? Terry Funk. Terry Funk had a great feud with the Nature Boy Ric Flair around that time. And not only that, he would also be there for in a little bit in '94. But uh, before we get into ECW, a lot of people don't remember this. Do you remember in 1994 the Stud Stable?
mm, I'm 94. I'm trying to think what I did in what I was doing in 94. I think I was in middle school. In my rest my year, I'm trying. I'm 41 now, so I'm trying to think of where I was in '94. I think I was like
so
in elementary school with
so
Bosie.
a little background. It was Colonel Robert Parker's Stud Stable, which
Yes.
had Terry consisted of Terry Funk, Bunkhouse Buck, Arn Anderson, and Ming, or as everyone else knows Ming as. Come on, Joe, give him the answer.
Oh, yes, WCW. I'm reading the comment, not in WWE. WCW,
This
friends.
was in WCW.
Yes, and that was the stable that Ming was like their bodyguard. And I
Yes.
remember I remember they did a match in the War Games, and they had Colonel Parker was actually the third or fourth member they forced him to be in the match, and they
Mhm.
had Ming outside, and the match was going well until Colonel Parker kind of aka kind of cried his boo boo way out of the match by giving up.
Right. Then in 94, 95, he went to IWA Japan, which is where we get the famous deathmatch scenes, especially with his feud with Cactus Jack, or as people know him now, Mick Foley. Especially the King of the Deathmatch finals between him and Mick Foley. Again, YouTube has it. Go check it out. There's actually a video on YouTube that has Mick Foley reading from his book, Man from Have a Nice Day. That specifically goes over that match, and he reads it and it follows along. It's pretty cool. Um, but that match, again, Terry Funk solidified himself in the deathmatch scene, and this is mid '90s, so this is 30 years into his career.
Mm.
And during that time, he was also with Eastern Championship Wrestling. Then it formed into Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, and this is where I think personally Terry made his mark in the '90s. Because in the '60s he was just a young up and comer, great tag team with Dory Funk Jr. The '70s, he was the world's heavyweight champion. Nobody could touch him. In the '80s, he made his debut in the mid 1980s, and the WWF had those famous feuds. Now, mid '90s, he was in ECW, helping that specific company grow. Because it's like Paul Heyman said back then, guys had the superstar syndrome where the older generation wanted to keep their spot. They didn't want to hand it over to the next generation. Well, that wasn't the case with Terry Funk. Terry Funk wanted to teach the next generation by saying, "Oh, I can do something with him," or "Give me this kid. We can run a program together." That's how Terry Funk was, and I believe that's how you should be in the business. Um, but Terry Funk helped revolutionize ECW. A lot of people will say, "Well, who's on the Mountain Rushmore?" Terry Funk has to be on there.
Oh yeah.
Terry Funk has to be on the Mount Rushmore of ECW wrestlers, without a doubt. Terry Funk should be on the Mount. I personally believe on anybody's top 5 list, top 10 list, or any Mount Rushmore of wrestlers at all. Heck, even I think he was a little underrated as the world's champion. Just putting in my 2 cents there. Actually, we do have a picture here of Terry Funk with the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. Uh, Again, this is 30 years into his career,
Mm.
and they made him the ECW Heavyweight Champion. Uh, I mean, it's people would say it's ludicrous, but I understand why. If you're trying to bring a company up, this is kind of like people get mad, like an older generation wrestler getting like the heavyweight title. If you want to establish your company and establish your title, then you have to have either a major heel, or B, you have to have an established wrestler that will help not only grow your company but also grow that heavyweight title to give it more prestige. And I think Terry Funk was that exact person who deserved to do that. But then in '97, he would return to the WWF. Everybody remembers this as Chainsaw Charlie. When he came out of the box against the New Age Outlaws, even winning the WWF tag team titles with Cactus Jack, his old foe. But a lot of people also remember that he, he famously got choke slammed during the Hell in the Cell match against Undertaker and got choke slammed out of his shoes. Poor Terry.
You know, I like the Chainsaw Charlie character, but I
Mhm.
really wish they would have brought him back as Terry Funk.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
agree. He did have a few matches as Terry Funk. Um, I think he did like a shotgun Saturday night, where him and Austin kind of had a thing. God, that rivalry would have been fantastic.
imagine,
What is it?
just imagine that, Joe. That would have been so crazy.
Two
They could
Texans
have
going at
made,
it. Yeah.
yeah, or they could have like if Terry could have convinced Vince by that time. Maybe they could have did a Texas death match, him versus Austin.
That would have been cool. But then in '98, he would come back to ECW, to the November to Remember, uh, where he would have a little bit of a run between '98 and mid '99. And this is when we started having the retirement matches going on and off, on and off, on and off. Which, if you watch Beyond the Mat, he had his retirement match against Bret the Hitman Hart in '97. Then came back '98, '99. Then he came back to 2000 to WCW and was named the commissioner of WCW, and would form a stable called the Old Age Outlaws, which was a play on the New Age Outlaws. And it was with Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, and Paul Orndorff. And they went against the NWO 2000. NWO 2000. We'll get into that in the NWO episode mid-July. But he would also have hardcore matches. He won the inaugural WCW Hardcore Championship.
Jeez.
Oh, God. Why, Terry? Why? Then he would travel the independent circuit between 2000 and 2006, wrestling at various promotions. Sadly, turned down an offer to be on the first ECW One Night Stand, but instead he went to the Hardcore Homecoming that was held at the ECW arena that Shane Douglas was able to put on. Then he did a stint in 2004 with TNA, NWA TNA. Then in 2009 did something with TNA as well. Then he would have on again, off again sprees between 2006 and 2016 with the WWE, making various appearances, especially having that tag match with Edge and Mick Foley, where him and Tommy Dreamer had the tag match at ECW One Night Stand. But yeah, that's a little bit of a brief history of Terry Funk. I mean, I listed some accolades. I mean, let's look at it. House, All Japan Pro Wrestling. I got it right here. World's Strongest Tag Determination League with Dory Funk Jr. in 1977, 1979, and 1982. Champion Carnival Distinguished Service Award 1980. World's Strongest Tag Team Determination League Technical Award in 1977 with his brother Dory Funk Jr. World's Strongest Tag Determination League Team Play Award 1980 with Dory Funk Jr. World's Strongest Tag Team Determination League Service Medal Award Dory Funk Jr. Another award for tag teams, multiple awards for tag team. Cauliflower Alley Club, the Iron Mike Mrzowski Award in 2005. Championship Wrestling from Florida. He won the NWA Florida Heavyweight Championship once. Won the NWA Florida Tag Team titles twice with his brother. Was an NWA Florida Championship television champion. In ECW, he was an ECW World Champion twice, an ECW Television Champion, and a Lifetime Achievement Award in '97. I guess. Let's see, multiple Hall of Fames from WWE to various Hardcore Hall of Fames, Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame, Georgia Championship Wrestling. Him and his brother won the NWA Georgia Tag Team titles once. He was a Georgia Television Champion. Jim Crockett Promotions. He was the WCW NWA United States Champion twice. The WCW Hardcore title 3 times. WCW Hall of Fame class of 1995. And the NWA United States Championship Tag Tournament. Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Yeah, you heard me right. Juggalo Championship Wrestling, which is ICP's promotion. He was Hall of Fame class and not two. Sorry, he wasn't Hall of Fame. He was heavyweight champion one time. NWA, he was NWA Hall of Fame class of 2009. One-time NWA Heavyweight Championship, which we briefly went over. The NWA Brass Knuckles Championship. There's just so many titles and accolades. I don't have time to list them all.
They would have to make like a big giant wall, people dedication wall. It would just be a Terry Funk wall of all his achievements. And if they had a t-shirt, they would have to put it on the sleeves. They would have to come with like pants. You know when you get a pajama that comes with like pants. So with like a picture of Terry Funk on the front, it would have to be on the legs of the pants, and then you get socks. It'd be on the socks, and then on the underwear. Be a whole outfit.
Then he was actually a little bit of an actor. Not many people know that. So many people probably remember him from Roadhouse, Beyond the Mat, Friday Night Lights as a fan. Believe it or not, made a little bit of a cameo, and he was a bodyguard, Frankie, in one of my favorite movies, The Ringer. Then various TV appearances. Even did one on was on Dark Side of the Ring. Then unfortunately, last year we lost him and Bray Wyatt in the same week. You talk about a bad week for a wrestling fan. We lost probably two of the greatest minds in professional wrestling. I know I did an episode, one of my earlier episodes, on both of them, and it was just a lot of people were gutted by it because Terry Funk. It seemed like he wouldn't age.
No.
It seems like, well, okay, maybe Terry Funk isn't. Nothing's going to happen to him, and then unfortunately, it did happen to him. But yeah, man, Terry Funk, he was. If there's any Mount Rushmore of world champions, people who deserve to be on Mount Rushmore's just for providing the next generation of professional wrestling, make sure that the next generation of wrestling is there and not doing goofy crap. Terry Funk 100% is on that list for making sure that wrestling, the sport of professional wrestling, was handled correctly. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Yep, exactly.
And that goes for his brother Dory Funk Jr. As well. But that was the episode, History of Pro Wrestling of Terry Funk. Joe, do you have anything to add to this?
We were talking before, like I really wish that we would have got like more matches with some like the highlight wrestlers with Terry, like the Stone Cold Steve Austins, the Shawn Michaels. Wish we had a chance to have like a Terry Funk versus like Undertaker match, Terry Funk versus Triple H match, Terry Funk versus The Rock. We could have had like, oh my gosh, it was like so many wrestlers. I know we didn't off key for it, but Terry Funk versus like X Pac.
Well, Terry Funk, this was in the 90s, mind you, was going to the top rope and doing a moonsault.
Yeah, we could have had. Oh, you know who I would have loved to see him Funk if you do a
Huh.
moonsault? Terry Funk versus like, what's his name? Oh my gosh, Flash Funk.
Oh, you talking about Too Cold Scorpio?
Yeah, just imagine that. Scorpio versus Terry Funk.
I think that may have happened in ECW. I would have to
Like
look.
in WWE, like or like I said, X Pac versus oh my gosh, for Big Boss Man. You know, like anybody that would have had a really good like Chef Kiss match with Terry. I would have loved to see Michaels and not like a sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. He would have had definitely a good brawling match. He was a brawler and a underrated technical wrestler.
Him versus Michaels? Oh my god. And not a WWE now WWE match with him, like the Attitude Era bloody. Like both of them crimson mask at the end of the match.
Well, here's the question. Who would you like to see if you can book a fantasy match? We'll have Terry Funk going up against an up and comer of the new generation. Who would you think would be great to have? Like, oh my gosh, Terry Funk just put over another person. Who
Damian
would you?
Priest versus Terry Funk.
That would be interesting. Priest versus Funk. That would be pretty cool.
And a bloody match, like an ROH kind of match. Like when he was in ROH, that kind of match.
Priest.
Not now Damian Priest in our original ROH.
Well, I think now Damian would be good too. If we could have gotten the especially like mid '80s Funk, yeah, that would be great. Or ECW Funk, which a lot of people can probably play it on WWE 2K24, not a sponsor. Now, if you got the DLC for the ECW pack, but
Finn Balor versus Terry Funk.
That would be interesting.
Tables match.
That would be very interesting.
5 tables stacked up, and Finn tries to do the quick with Rodney. Goes through. Like,
Dave, what did you just say?
Foreign objects!
Oh, not on.
well, okay, now all I'm picturing is that stupid clip when they all were the chairs were all flying in the ring, and the one just hit Foley directly in the head, and it's just like,
Stop throwing the chairs! Stop
You're
throwing the
that
chairs!
little kid from The Simpsons. He's dead. He's already dead.
Yeah, it'd probably be like this.
Go!
Yeah. It just says when he gets hit in the head, it's just
Every chair that was buried under Terry, this is every time he got hit with one.
Go! 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 Go!
Yeah. Imagine right next to your nieces and nephews. That's me under all those tables, all those chairs. That right there. That was me. Like, how do you explain that to your children? Like, Joe, what is the way do you sit your kids down? This is a match I don't want you to see, but you have to see it anyway. Like, how do you explain that to your kids?
They're gonna wait till they're 13 or 14 before that match even airs in their minds. That's like, how that's going to go, Joe.
Joe, if you were him, how do you stage that and show your kids? What do you tell them?
You're not watching this match. That's exactly what I would be telling my children. You will
Will,
not watch. If I know there's going to be a hint of violence that could set both my son, who is autistic, and my daughter, who has a bad temper like me, then they're not watching that match. They're not going to be at that match. Because my daughter will literally kick and scream and claw to get in that ring just to protect her daddy. All right, that's how that would be.
Sounds like a cool.
But Joe, this was another episode of the History of Professional Wrestling. Thank you for joining me. You have been a great little co-host here. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and give Joe a big round of applause. Go ahead and hit that. And Joe, what do you got going on over at your Dudes at Ringside?
Dudes at Ringside podcast. Tomorrow, my episode airs with the Mafia Princess Bella Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And every Tuesday, me and my lovely co-host Rain, we have our episodes now on Twitch. And you also, can you please get a chance to go over and check out the Joe Panther Variety Show on YouTube? Always a fun time, always a good experience, and always internationally known. Ghost Head Talk is my baby. Ghost Head Nerd Talk is the new name, and it's always, we keep this. Joe, thank you again, brother, and it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure.
Not a problem, brother. Folks, thank you again for joining us tonight. If you can, go ahead and follow the Joe Monroe Show. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers. And if you're just watching on YouTube Saturday, which would be tomorrow, thank you for tuning in. But until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching live or watching this pre-recorded later. And always, always, always support the sport of professional wrestling. Dave, go ahead and take us out, buddy.
You've been listening to the Joe Monroe Show with Joe Monroe. Don't forget to like and subscribe.